Welcome to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Tracy Shirk, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome to Talent Optimization. When we go to create self-managing teams, there's really 3 P's that go along with that, and that is purpose, process, and people. And so we have the perfect person with us today to talk about how we integrate purpose, process, and people into ensuring we really have self-managing teams inside of our organization. So Assad Mirza is with us from Infinity Optics. Assad, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to this.
Absolutely, me too. And when Assad and I first met, I was so incredibly impressed with how he was able to take process and put process into very complex people and systems inside of organizations. So much of his background is with operations, quality, and of course, using this Six Sigma black belt to amazing degrees. So with that, I'm really curious. When you're looking at creating self-managing teams, what are the most important aspects of that?
People are always top of the list, right? But a little bit before people, I think we should think about, do we understand what our purpose is? Do we know what our top focus areas are? Because that's where it all starts. A lot of time don't have that clarity. And the result of that is that we put together these teams that, since they don't have that clarity, they will never gel. They will never get to the level of performance that you would expect them to be. They will never reach their full potential. So knowing that, what's the purpose, that clarity, the focus, that helps. Then after that, if we think about it, then we can actually talk about what is the most critical work that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's our core that needs to be done? What our customer prioritize? What our business prioritize? Once we have that clarity, then we should think about how do we assemble the team that have the ability to accomplish those core activities, core tasks, core values of the business that they have the ability to achieve. And then you talk about the team.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to break down what you said because there's a lot of gold in there. So we're talking about the core values of the team. But before we talk about that, we're really talking about the why of the organization, right? Why is the organization doing what they're doing? And how does that align with the why of the people doing what they're doing?
Right. You said it perfectly here because most of the time, right, it's a lot easier to blame people.
Uh-huh.
It's a lot easier to say, if I had the perfect team. Well, that doesn't exist because the perfect team begins with, does the organization have the clarity? Are they having identity crisis? Because most organizations, they never have that clarity who they are.
Right.
So if they don't know who they are, then how can you say that I have a good team or a bad team?
Right. So I'm curious, how do you help organizations that you work with to really gain that clarity and to ensure that that purpose is front and center before we get into creating teams?
Yeah, I think it gets much deeper into, it all starts with the vision, right? And then you get to the mission. But the problem is that most of the time we confuse vision and mission. Okay. So if we never have the vision of what potential, what possibilities that are out there that I want to achieve, it doesn't matter if I can get there today or not, but I have this great vision, right? This nirvana that is out there. If I don't have that in front of me, then what am I really aiming for? Then I'm just going aimlessly and here's another issue, right? And this is where most of the companies, they struggle with because they think their vision is making money. Yes, profits are great, but that's not your vision.
That's the outcome of your vision, correct?
Exactly. And so that's number one, like helping them understand that when you started this business or when you were thinking about this business, at that point, you had that spark in you.
Right.
There was something that actually triggered you to take this big leap. This is never easy to start a business or to grow a company. You gotta have that fire, that spark in you. So then most of the time it's actually going back, digging in and helping them find that spark again.
Right.
Then after that, then what am I going to do for the next 3 years, 5 years, whatever. Okay. So then once we have that clarity, then we can talk about, okay, what are the strategies that we're going to deploy? What kind of people I need to have? But it all goes back to how do we find that spark?
Right. So do you have an example of how your work with organizations have allowed that spark to come up so you can get to that work of really aligning the people with the processes inside of the organization?
It's I wish I had like some sort of a scientific answer. I'm pretty sure somebody has it, but that's not me. I don't have a scientific answer, but I'll share with you, this thing with you that a while back, not too while back, but 2-3 years ago, I was actually working with a startup in Africa. Okay. This person, she had a wonderful idea in the beginning when she started the business. She realized that how hard it was for these villages in Africa to get basic food products, produce, fruits, those type of things. That if they wanted to go get that, it was almost a whole day journey to just go get a bag of rice.
Right.
So that sparked, that passion kind of like, no, I want to, and she was all about helping people and making things easy for them. So she started this business, but then the business started to grow and other companies, bigger companies start to approach her and say, hey, can you do something similar for us?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, she lost that original spark, which was, hey, my goal is to make things easier for people, help them, Then it became more about business. And then it was all about how do I streamline my cost and how do I streamline my supply chain, which is all great. But the result of that was the customers start to suffer, the quality start to suffer. Okay. So when she approached me, I started to work with her and I was like, okay, let's go back to where you actually originally started with.
Right.
Why did you start this thing? We need to go back to that passion. Once we are back there, she wakes up and she's like, oh my God, you're right. I start to think more about money.
Right.
Than to think about why did I start this thing to begin with?
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing you say is having that purpose in front of you is key to doing all the other things. But it goes back to what's our mindset? Is our mindset going to be this purpose of serving, or is it my mindset now is the purpose has become making money and streamlining?
Absolutely.
It doesn't need to happen, but it has to start with what's our why, right?
Exactly.
And one of the conversations that we've had as we were prepping for today was so much along the lines of mindset, right? So what is that mindset around people, around the impact that we're making, and around the processes that we use to get there? So I'm super curious about how you kind of weave together the purpose of an organization with the mindset that the managers have and that our team members have when we're creating these self-managing teams.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I have thought a lot about this. I had a lot of conversations with some wonderful people about this. There's one major change that needs to happen in our mindset. When we think about business perspective, we are still, even in 2021, we are still obsessed with efficiency. Every business, if you look at most of the metrics that we have, they focus so much on efficiency. Great, that's fine. But now, I think we have evolved enough in business sense. The true or a better measure should be we should start talking about effectiveness. So it's not about how fast you do something or did you do a good job or not. It's more about why did you do this and how did it create value for the organization, for the team, for the community. So if we start changing our mindset from efficiencies to effectiveness, we will start to look at how do we assemble team, how do we bring people to the organization, how do we actually make our people grow. All of that will change how we see that.
Right. And what a beautiful way to tie together people with purpose and the mindsets that we're having is to start to talk about, well, how do we effectively do this to still get to I love to call it a double bottom line. I think that's my nonprofit background, right?
Yeah.
The double bottom line of here is the why of what we're doing and the impact that we're making and the numbers, so we're looking to do that as effectively as possible with hitting both of those, and they're equally important.
Absolutely. I mean, the other piece of it is longevity. Okay. I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek. I mean,
yes.
he writes wonderful books, and one of his books, he did a great job. It was Infinite Games.
Yes.
That book resonated so well with me. And I mean, the whole idea of that we need to start thinking that our business is not a finite game. That,
right.
Okay, if I win this quarter, if I win this year, life is over. No, because you're this next level. And the businesses only evolve through people.
Right.
So it would be very foolish of me to believe that I can evolve my business without evolving my people.
Right.
So that's the opportunity. That's what we need to think about. We need to think about our businesses as an infinite game. And we need to recognize that it is our people that are actually playing that infinite game. So how do we keep building them up? How do we keep empowering them? How do we keep providing them the new skills, the new mindset, so they can themselves evolve and then in return evolve the business? So it's then an ever-winning game instead of just one quarter or 1 year.
Right. And with that, continuously evolving our people and ensuring that, hey, they can manage themselves, meaning they have responsibilities that they're not always waiting on a manager or someone else who's typically a bottleneck and not doing the work necessarily because they're leading in a different way. So looking at that specific piece, one of the things that, Assad, you're really well known for is you're known for bringing effectiveness and efficiencies into organization by saying, hey, I believe you're overstaffed because of X, Y, Z. So you really look at the processes and then how we bring teams together to work much more efficiently and effectively with that why at the center of it. So knowing how you do that, and sometimes you say, hey, you're overstaffed by 50%, we're going to cut 50% of your workforce. We scare the heck out of people.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, it goes back to the effectiveness, right? Because here's where the challenge happens. So it's a lot easier to throw people at a problem,
right,
versus solve that problem.
Correct.
Okay. It breaks my heart anytime, I'm working within the organization and I see that we have added all of these extra wonderful resources, people, but we're asking them to do these tasks that the person that is performing the task, that they know that it adds no value.
Right.
And you as a leader, you also know it adds no value. But you as a leader have, for whatever reason, decided not to solve that problem.
Right.
And the solution you came up with which was the easy and the fast solution was, let's throw more people at it. Right. So then when we have this conversation of, hey, it's not that you don't have enough people in today's situation that we're living in right now. So, if we think about today's environment, right, we have everywhere, hiring signs everywhere.
Yep.
Right? Every company is looking for people, and every person I talk to, they tell me exactly the same thing. We can't find people. Okay. But the truth of the matter is, you don't need to find people. You need to go back and look at your organization. And I guarantee you, pretty much in every situation that I have been involved in, every organization, they were overstaffed. And it was not, they were overstaffed just because they just decided to hire a whole bunch of people and then all of a sudden the business went away. There's sometimes those type of situations. But 99% of the time, the situation is that we never took the time to solve those problems.
Right.
So now is the perfect time. And COVID was, from that sense, if we think about it, and actually I wrote an article in the beginning of COVID where I listed about 10 different things for the companies to do during this time. And one of those things was that, hey, here you have a perfect opportunity as leaders to go back and look at your processes, look at your systems, look at your company, and solve those problems. So when you come back, then you have those problems solved. You can be more efficient. You can be more effective.
And then the people in those roles are performing value-added work, and they're also making decisions at the level that they can make them, so we don't have the bottleneck of management, right?
Absolutely. A lot of times I go to these different factories, right? But we have them on the okay. How do you think that person feels?
Right.
That they are very smart, they know what's going on, and then we have them do something. Sometimes it's needed, but that should be for a short period of time. We should be, as leaders, our job should be, how do we create more meaningful work?
Right.
It's not only now, see, this is another mindset change, right? It's no longer about just creating work. Now it is about creating meaningful work.
Right. That's aligned with the business results based on starting with why are we doing what we're doing?
Exactly.
So as we wrap up our conversation, which I think you and I could talk for hours on these topics, What's one key takeaway that you have for our executive and CEO listeners?
Yeah. For me, it's a pretty simple tagline, right? Know the core, protect the core, right? So, of course, then the follow-up question is, what does that mean, right? My recommendation to every person I coach or work with, I always tell them, know what your core tasks are. And I don't want to make this a philosophical thing. No, think about what the core things that you must do.
Right.
And you can do that at a CEO level and break it down all the way to an associate level.
Right.
Because first, organization needs to ask that question, what are the core things that we must do? And then individuals, teams, they should ask the same thing. So most of the time, we don't even know what our core is.
Right.
What are those core tasks, core things that we must do? So first, know your core, and then protect the core. So what does that mean? So that means that now you have taken the time to identify what are the most important things that you must do.
Right.
Now you actually have a great way to filter things that may start to creep back in.
Right.
And start making you ineffective again. You can actually easily recalibrate yourself, reassess yourself, and no, these are my cores. So why do I have all these other 5 things that creep in?
Right.
You can go back, readjust yourself again. So as long as if we follow this simple thing, know the core, protect the core, I think we can stay effective for a long time.
Absolutely. And the takeaway that I'm also taking from that for HR professionals is when we're writing the essential functions of the job, we need to make sure that other duties as assigned doesn't become 90% of the job description.
I am glad that you said that, because one of the things that I find quite fascinating, anytime I get a copy of a job description from someone, right? Usually it's 5 pages long. And out of the 5 pages, usually there's only 1 or 2 paragraphs that actually talk about the true work that person needs to do.
Right.
The other 4 pages have everything else. And I'm sitting over there, I'm like, first of all, in 2021, who reads 5 pages?
It's legal protection.
Maybe. See, I'm just a process guy, right?
And this is so why, we love the collaborations, and we're working with different individuals at Elevated Talent, bringing in these subject matter experts. like what you are, hey, how do we tie these things together? Because at the end of the day, ensuring that our people are aligned with the right job isn't an HR responsibility. It's a leadership responsibility, and it crosses every single sector of the organization.
Absolutely. Wonderfully stated.
So if you're interested in learning more about Assad, we will have his LinkedIn profile and company website all on the show notes. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.